Well, there was a time before I got involved in this supply chain management research that I used to do a lot of customer satisfaction surveys. You know, we've done them in maybe a dozen different industries. In fact, you know, varied industries from, you know, plastic resins to circuit board to consumer goods like golf equipment or 3M products. And one of the attributes that always came out as important when they were asked to rate the importance of attributes was honesty of the salesperson. And typically, performance scores were significantly lower, so there were gaps between importance and performance scores. And I interpreted that to mean that salespeople make promises the company can't keep on its best day because they don't understand, not because they're bad people. That, you know, you want the product on Friday. Hey, if that's how I get your signature on the page, we'll get it to you Friday. But we couldn't get it there Friday on our best day, right? So I think salespeople do a lot to manage expectations. I mean, we saw that in one of our research projects where we saw high standard deviation in the salesperson performance score. And we went back and we looked at who the salespeople were and how the company evaluated them, and we put them into 4 categories from high performer to low performer. The high performing salespeople, those customers, were happy with the salesperson performance. And they were the company was meeting their expectations on the other most important attributes as well. And then when you went to the next level of salesperson, there was a statistically significant gap that got bigger and bigger as you went to lower performing salespeople. So what that meant for me was the logistics system wasn't just randomly performing better for outstanding salespeople. The product wasn't just randomly performing better for outstanding salespeople. What was really going on here is that outstanding salespeople understand the company's product capabilities, they understand the logistics capabilities, they understand the customer's needs, and they match them up. Salespeople who aren't so good overpromise, the company underdelivers, and then you got a problem.
With significant shifts in where production is taking place, especially with respect to globalization, and also emerging consumer markets in areas where there weren't really significant markets, what does that do in terms of our outlook for supply chain management as a global function?
Well, I mean, clearly the obvious one is that with lengthened supply chains, you're going to have to deal with higher levels of inventory that result from more inventory in transit, less reliability around those transit times, things like customs delays and other things that tend to hold product up in international moves. So I think it's key, you know, if we decide we're going to source our golf club heads in China instead of Mexico, where we can send a truck for them, that we look at the total delivered cost. That we don't just look at the cost of what we're buying, but we look at inventory turns, we look at transportation, we look at other things that affect the total delivered cost.
And as retailers start to internationalize and have operations abroad, some that were traditionally just U.S.-based corporations, they become multinational corporations. How does that effectuate the supply chain?
Well, I think what happens is that global companies who deal with other global companies expect to get the same thing everywhere, right? So, you know, if you're a supplier to Walmart here in the U.S., they expect that you'll supply them in Brazil, Argentina, any other place they go, and they'll get the same kind of price and service everywhere.
Do you think there will be the emergence of more of these trading companies for that reason, that basically are facilitating kind of a hub and spoke system for these processes? That may be outside the firm.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen that. I mean clearly, you know, if I'm Walmart and I'm doing business with Colgate, Colgate's all over the world. They don't need a trading company to do business. I mean, you know, that kind of thing's going to be more important to some guy in Argentina who's never exported, but now because the peso, instead of being 1 to the dollar, is 3 to the dollar, has a lower cost product but doesn't have a clue how to export because they haven't been doing it. You know, if I'm Hardcore Candy and I'm already selling to Walmart and I'm doing private label for Braxton and I'm, you know, a major candy provider to the world, selling more is an easier thing to do, I suppose, if the price of my materials is all gone down relative to what folks in other parts of the world are paying, and labor as well going down. But if I've never exported, then I need to figure out how to do that. So I think in those cases there may be opportunities. So if I was, you know, the government in Argentina, I might be trying to encourage that kind of thing to help companies that have never exported learn how to do it. They also have to have ways of finding customers when the product gets to where it's going, right? Because they don't have the infrastructure in place. But these big guys that sell to Walmart, you know, they're global companies anyway, most of them.
How do supply chain management processes that you described, how do you benchmark performance? In other words, how do I know if my supply chain management processes
are well, our book is going to press next week. The book explaining the 8 processes and how to implement them, along with chapters dealing with developing relationships in the supply chain, measuring performance in the supply chain, and also a chapter that kind of looks to the future and compares our framework to the SCORE model, which is the only other one out there that is really pushing standard processes. We think theirs aren't as comprehensive as ours, and that our framework's a better framework, but at least they've got a framework, and they're pushing standard processes, where a lot of people talking about processes don't articulate what they are. It's like everybody knows, you know. So the next thing we're working on is an assessment tool. The forum members want it. They want to be able to judge for each of the 8 processes how well they're doing and where the best opportunities are in terms of directing resources to improve performance. So you know, a few months from now, or at least a year from now, we should be able to better answer that question.
Are there any companies that you think do an extraordinarily good job? They're exemplars in the field of supply chain management?
Well, certainly 3M's been thinking about this back to the mid-90s and the early 90s. In fact, we offered our first supply chain management seminar at the Marriott Sawgrass Resort in February of 1996, and 3 of those sessions were run by 3Mers because they were further along than other people. We had Jag Sheth talk about customer relationship management. It wasn't our process, you know, the way we would talk about it today, but we knew what the topic was that the process needed to cover. Dennis Fabozzi from 3M talked about customer service management as a supply chain process, and much of that material would hold the test of time and be relevant today. Another 3Mer presented their demand management process, and Gary Ridenour from 3M presented the overall 3M vision. Now 3M, I believe, is further along this road than others, but in terms of the 8 processes, the way they've scoped them out, we've scoped them out, we meaning the 2 representatives from each of those 15 companies that attend our meetings, plus the research team. So these processes are the combined wisdom of the 30 very smart executives and the researchers. There is no firm within the forum that has all 8 processes implemented the way we think they ought to be implemented.